Welcome to Product-Led Growth Leaders. We have a really interesting discussion today. It's a product ops. We've got Tiffany Murphree here. She is a product operations manager, a speaker here in Houston. She gave a very nice talk recently about solving process problems and just difficult real world problems. And I say speaker here in Houston, she might not call herself that, but she speaks at some of the local meetups and gives a lot of valuable information. She is a self-made product ops aficionado. She found herself in a scenario where she was compelled to study, practice, execute product ops, and ultimately learned a lot of lessons about it and from it. And that's stuff that we're going to learn about here today. So, welcome, Tiffany. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, let's just dive right into the top. What is product ops?
So, product ops is interesting in that everyone defines it differently. So, whoever you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. So, a lot of what I've talked about in the past is my journey to figure out what product ops means to me and how it fits within my company. So, overall, the main theme is product operations is serving the product management department, helping them be more efficient and effective, and improving communications cross team, cross functionally.
Okay, so when I think about ops anything, right, and I think about DevOps, which of course came out years ago, and that was mending the gap between the developers who are writing the code and then the operations team who are actually bringing it live. And then since then, there's been all kinds of ops, design ops and research ops on the UX side of things, and there's all the FinOps, and and so what I've found as a through line, at least most of the time, and see if you think this applies to product ops, is that it's really trying to create a seamless pipeline from one point to another, and then everything around trying to make that optimal. Do you think that's a way to describe it, or is that an aspect of it?
That's absolutely a way to describe it. I think what varies is what that pipeline is. So some people think of that pipeline as the product life cycle. So from ideation all the way through execution. Some people may think that it's the execution piece only, which kind of leads into maybe that's just DevOps. It's not really product ops. But for me, it's the product manager's journey at our company, all the way from when we start hiring to offboarding the product managers and how they experience HCSS as a part of our company and what they're going to do here, making that a better journey for them. So it's all the way from hiring to offboarding.
Okay, so okay, that I think is a good distinction. So product ops, we're thinking about the life cycle of the whole product, and it sounds like the people involved in the process stuff.
Yes. So for us, people is a huge part of it. So I function around three main pillars. And for me, that's people, processes, and tools. And a lot of times when you hear about pillars of product ops, it may be data focused, process focused, tool focused. But I think it's really important to remember the people side of it and call it out distinctly as its own pillar, because without the people, product is really nothing. So that's why I want to make sure it's a distinct pillar for us that we put a lot of thought and effort into.
So what is the alternative to product ops where we go wrong? So if you're talking to the business side of things and you say, let's say you're trying to convince a business and you say, hey, I really think I've looked at the process, I've looked at things like the way we're doing things here. We really need product ops. What are they doing that's not product ops that leaves the gap open for needing product ops?
So I think it's probably different for most companies, but common themes could be you're having a hard time hiring or retaining, you're not keeping your top talent. There's a problem there, or you're launching your products and you're not getting good feedback loops, or you're not getting good communication out to customers or internal stakeholders around those launches. There could be a gap there, or just within the product team itself. For us in particular, we had a bunch of disparate tools. Everyone did their own thing in their own way, and it wasn't very cohesive. So we wanted to make sure all of the product managers had the same tools and were working in the same ways.
Okay. And so let's do maybe like an example of a product ops like pipeline. So if I'm thinking about, for example, DevOps, I'm thinking about CI/CD. And let's say I've got a product that, I don't know, let's say it's a FinOps product and there's financial folks who need to use the stuff at the end, and they're using it to analyze data and do maybe data discovery on some business intelligence. So the CI/CD pipeline, we're starting from the developers, and the product owner comes up with requirements, and they give it to the developer, and then it goes to the QA, and then it goes right, and you release it in different environments, and there's a whole pipeline. So could you talk me through maybe the scope of beginning to end? And I know it wouldn't be the end all, and different places would be different, but maybe an example of what one might look like.
So for us, we've been on the CI/CD journey ourselves, trying to get better at that.
And I'm sorry, what is your organization? I didn't mention it in the beginning.
HCSS.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So we've been on that journey, as I think most people are, as they're trying to improve their business and getting better at it. But for the product ops side of that, you're continuing to develop faster, you're iterating faster, you're releasing faster, but there's the piece of how are you communicating that to your customers? How are you managing that work internally? How are you letting other people know marketing? How do they know in advance when something's coming out? How do they know how to market it to the customers? What story are they telling? What story are you telling? And it's easy, or maybe easier, when you have one big release a year. You can really craft out that story. You've got 12 months to figure it out. Now you're releasing little bits, sometimes once a day, multiple times a day. And you don't want to obviously have release notes popping up 3 times a day. So how are you crafting that? How are you going to tell that story succinctly in ways that people can understand it and consume it as you go along this CI/CD journey, and you're releasing more frequently? A lot of stuff has to change in the back end, even just the tools we use to manage the work for developers and how they break down what a release is and what a feature is when they're having to do it in much smaller chunks.
And so to me, it sounds like DevOps is under product ops, like it's not the whole thing. Do I have that wrong? Or right, that it's a bigger
like
umbrella.
Your
product
sisters,
ops?
right? What product ops is doing should be helping what DevOps is doing, and you're sharing that together and spreading the burden across the two of you. So you should be aware of what each team is trying to do and how you can support and help each other.
So you see it as a sibling, not a parent.
Yes, I think it was siblings.
Gotcha. And then, so what are some of the tools that you use that are maybe specific to product ops? Is it just using the same tools like Jira and things like that, but better? Or are there like new things that we maybe haven't heard of or know about that product ops is using?
There's definitely tools for product ops, but the way I look at it right now is we're trying to eat our own dog food. So the tools that we expect our product managers to use are the ones that I'm asking our product ops team to use. Because if we can't figure out how to run our business with what we're trying to tell them to do, then it's easier to uncover those flaws or to create those best practices. So that's where we're focusing. So we're definitely using things like Jira, which we're selling our soul to Atlassian right now and going all in on that to solve a lot of our problems. But for product ops specifically, we've created things like a product maturity matrix in a scoring model where we can go through and say, this is what an optimal product team looks like as far as creating roadmaps and marketing and in-app guidance and all sorts of different categories. And then where is each product team right now along that journey from immature to mature, so that we have a good understanding of where we're at and where we need to improve. And then we can hone in on those areas as a group or individually to level up and continue leveling up. So the goal would be that at some point, every product team is green in all those categories instead of being red.
We can dream, right? And get there. And every organization, nobody does anything perfectly. Everyone says they do agile, but there's different variations of that. So one of the things I think about is, so on the design professional side, I think about how my profession looks different and what we do looks different at different types of companies. So like huge companies and people who spend a lot of time there, things sometimes look different at a smaller company, right? And in terms of the processes and the kinds of skills that are expected if you're hired to work there. Is there anything that you've found or observed that we can expect to be different in product ops and how it would apply at one type of organization versus another in terms of in being prepared for that kind of difference?
Yeah, I think when going into product ops and looking, maybe you're interviewing at other companies or trying to roll it out at your company, like I said, there's different definitions probably from every place you go what it actually means. Some places I've heard product ops is really just like a go-to-market like list checker. Here's the things you have to do when you go to market, just make sure they all get done. In others, it is more of that visionary space where you can figure out how to improve the PM's journey. Sometimes it does only focus on tools or one piece of the pillar. So it is very different. So if you're going into it, I think it's good to have understanding for yourself what you think product ops should be and what resonates with you, and then make sure you're finding that right fit in a company, because your definition may be totally different from their definition.
Is there an accepted authority out there on where who's got the right answer in terms of what product ops is supposed to be, or is it all over the place?
It is all over the place. So I've done a lot of different trainings and evaluating what's out there, and there is very different opinions of what it could be or should be. So that's why I say it's good to understand within yourself what you think it should be. And there's value that can be taken from all of them for sure. And then you can create your own definition as well, which is what I've been able to do, is take little bits of knowledge and golden nuggets from multiple sources and say, this is what I want product ops to be here at my company. This is what I think it means to us. And so far, luckily, that's resonated with the people that I work for. So we've been able to do that.
And that leads into my next question: is the lessons you've learned along the way, and in carving out what works from what you need where you are and the work that you do. You've learned, but then you've applied stuff and you learn lessons along the way. So let maybe go through some of those lessons. You talked about some of them in your presentation out here. I thought they were really useful. Let's walk us through some of those.
Yeah. So my product ops journey actually started with our VP of product coming to me and saying, hey, we've got all these issues. We've got silos. No one's using the same tools. We don't even have people with the same job titles or an understanding of what they mean. We're trying to grow our department. Can you help me solve these problems? So I was like, yeah, sure. These sound like great problems to solve. But we didn't even know what product ops was at that time. So I had some nonsense made up title to go do this job. And it took us an embarrassingly long time to actually realize that this job had a name, and that name was product ops. So once I figured that out, it did give me something good to grasp onto and dig into what product ops actually is, and do that research of different experts in the industry. But yeah, that's the first lesson. I learned that product ops is a thing and it has a name, and there are people who have thoughts on how it should work. Lesson number one, product ops, it's a thing. So after that, I started talking with a lot of people that are in product ops roles already. And I think that's the most valuable thing you can do, is just to reach out to people who are actually already practicing this and have some expertise, because the rest of us, we're all just like floundering, trying to figure it out. So talking to real people who have helped do real things and solve real problems in this space is super valuable. So I did that, and I started looking at things through the product lifecycle as my lens. So all of my work that I was doing is to improve the product lifecycle. And I thought, this is this giant aha moment. This is perfect. I know exactly what I'm doing. This is great. And then I heard someone say something, and it was that product ops, your job is to PM the PM experience. And then that just blew up my bubble. I was like, this is golden. This is the best thing I've ever heard. And so that was something that Chris Butler said. I heard it at a product ops summit from PLA, and I was like, whoa, okay, game changer. Here we go. My job is to PM the PM experience. So what does that mean? How does it fit within this? So that product lifecycle became like one little piece of the PM journey, the execution piece of the PM journey. And the rest of it is what I said before, like all the way from hiring to offboarding employees and how I improve that for them, so that luckily, hopefully, we're getting these good people in who never want to leave. That's my goal, because their ways of working, the tools they have, everything is great. It's best in class. They feel rewarded. They love what they do, and they're here forever. You do have to keep that in mind when you think of the PM experience. You have to think, who is my user? My user is the PM. And so that's who I'm serving. So a couple of lessons I learned along the way from that is, it's not my job to exert the leader of the PM. So our VP of product, or maybe your CPO's vision on those people. That's not my job. My job is to serve them, not him. hopefully through serving them, he's happy with the work that you're doing. So it's good. But you should not just be their direct line into the PMs to push down their objectives and make that move forward. So that was one lesson I learned. And then also a hard lesson to learn is your job as product ops is not just to do the work that the PMs don't want to do. So a lot of times the PMs would be like, oh, we really are not good at facilitating meetings. Can you facilitate all our meetings? Or we're not good at taking notes during meetings. Will you take all of our notes? I'm like, oh, this is not really my job. So no. At first I said yes a lot. And then I realized, no, this is keeping me from doing the things that I actually need to be doing. So that's a hard lesson too. Even though you're serving the PMs, you don't have to do the work that they don't want to do. And you can tell them, no, we're working on something bigger here. We're not note takers.
I can see why that would be a pitfall because you're trying to make it all work. And just, yeah, I'm here for you. Tell me what you need. And it's, oh, yeah, we need people to take notes. There's no, I'm looking for more so process stuff. So that is really cool. So the PMing, the PM experience, um, now how does that come together? It makes a lot of sense because on the design side, we do a lot of that kind of stuff. You have to design for your design process. You have to etch it out. I'm picturing like almost like a literal Jira board where you identify the things that need to change. And then is it tied in with the sprint retros and things like that? What are some of the ways that comes together in terms of being built into the practice?
Yeah. So like I said, we are eating our own dog food. So for our ops group, we started mapping the user journey, the user being the PM, all the way from hiring to when they left the company and all the pieces in between there. And then we pinpointed things that we needed to focus on first. So for us, we were growing our team drastically within that first year when I was hired. So we went from 12 product people to 24 product people in two different roles. So we just had one product manager role before. Now we had product managers and technical product managers, and we didn't know what that meant. So we had to define first what was the difference between these roles? How are we going to hire for them? How do we onboard them? How do we make them successful? Because we had none of that. So we created training programs and interview templates and role descriptions and career progression paths and all of this documentation and tools to support the fact that we're building out this bigger, broader department that we want to be successful. So that was one piece of the journey. Then we moved over to another piece of the journey, which is how do we become successful, or how do we better track our roadmaps? And we define like, where do we want to do that? What are the best practices? Now let's go back to the training and teach those things at the beginning now that they're defined here. And so we created the user journey. We used Miro, which is the chosen tool that we want for our product managers to use for that like whiteboarding space. We put it all into Jira Product Discovery, which is where we want ideation to be happening. Moved it into Jira Plans, where we build out roadmaps, and then moved it into the actual Jira backlog that we work on. We do daily stand-ups, we do product ops sprint reviews and planning. We do all of the things that we expect our teams to be doing so that we can feel that pain and see how the new processes and things we're asking them to do actually work. And we have run into things where it's like, why did we think they should do this? This is not great. We're like doubling their work, and where we've scrapped entire tools or processes that we've tried to roll out because we realized this isn't going to work. I forgot I'm trying to help the product managers, not our bosses or other departments. And so it does help bring light to those things.
Let's talk about some. I love all of that, and it really helps to unpack the PMing, the PM process because the PMs are the customers of this. Is that maybe a way of thinking about it? That
Right.
they
Yeah.
are
The
the client,
they're my users.
they're your users. And one of the cool things that you showed in your presentation is you showed a scorecard. And this was a way that you were able to measure, I think, either what to do or how the outcome was. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the scorecard was the way that we're measuring our maturity. So from that initial state, immature state of product management to the optimal leading department. And in rolling something out like that, I was really worried, like, how are my PMs going to score themselves on this? Is anyone wanting to say, like, my baby is ugly? I'm a one, I'm a zero on this scale. And really they took it when they scored themselves in a actually a pretty like critical way as far as how they were doing. And it really brought to light some key areas where our team is struggling right now that we need to improve. And from that, we've been able to get additional funding for new tools and investment in implementing and training people on the tools that we already have or the new ones that we're trying to roll out. And so that it gives a good holistic picture of where we're actually at and where we want to be. And when people say, why do you want to spend $100,000 on this new tool? We can say it's going to help us in these 4 areas where we're feeling the pain and we're hearing our customers saying we're not communicating regularly and they're not getting updates in the way they want things to pop up, in the app. So we need a way to do that. And here's why we're not doing it. And here's where we can be when we roll out the new tool, and steps and actual like concrete examples of how we get better to measure that this is actually helping us. We said we wanted to buy it. We're going to go from immature to maybe not mature, but somewhere in between, a repeatable process now. So this is what that's going to look like when we're done, and we can actually measure it.
Sounds awesome. Now, when I hear it being described, I'm like, people, they judge themselves and all that kind of stuff. But I think the important thing is the method. And I think that if you only have time and budget for a quick and dirty one, then maybe it's like, but I imagine that you could have it to the point where there's people doing maybe a more research rigorous approach to it, but that's the same thing and it's the same method. But I imagine there's a continuum based upon how much time and budget someone had to do that.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time up front trying to craft like this perfect scoring model. And then at some point it's not doing me any good if I don't get out there and actually talk to people. So we ended up just dumping a bunch of stuff into generative AI and was like, summarize this up and make it not sound like an idiot wrote it. Dumped it in there, and then we started having the conversations. And from there, we were able to identify, okay, let's HCSSify this a little bit. We don't really care about like A/B testing. It's not a thing we really do. We'll just scrap that. Don't worry about it. And then what does a stakeholder mean? Like we'll actually define for our sprint reviews, we expect these stakeholders. For our product reviews, we expect these stakeholders so that we could really get specific onto how our company would interpret those things. But we did it through conversation with the product managers as we were scoring them so that we were able to get a real good tool that's usable now in the future. But we didn't wait for perfect, because at some point, like you're never going to get there. And the longer you take, the less value you're getting. So we just bit the bullet and jumped all in.
Now you already walked through some of the lessons, but I want to have something where if someone's listening to this right now and they're saying, you know what, I think we need product ops at my organization. What are some maybe gotchas or potential obstacles or things that can derail it from the beginning, or that people should think about or watch out for when they're trying to get rolling with this?
I honestly, I think the hardest thing is that there's just that unclear understanding of what product ops even is. And convincing a company that you need this entire new department or team is going to be hard. But there's a lot of things that product teams could do now to facilitate improving some of those product operations type tasks. And you don't have to be in product operations to recognize that you need to have a better way of growing your careers in your team, or a better way of tracking roadmaps, or a single way of tracking roadmaps across your teams. And you can start working on those things now. And then when you go and ask, we need a product department, here's some of the things that they would have handled for us that we had to handle ourselves, that they could have focused 100% of their time on. It could have been done in 1 month instead of 5, because that's what they do. That's what they're good at. But you can have those success stories already to help justify why this is a need and why those pain points are so hard for your teams now.
Tiffany, really good stuff. Do you blog about any of this stuff yet or anything? And do you have time to do that kind of stuff?
I do not do any of that kind of stuff yet. I've been focusing on expanding my knowledge of product ops and convincing myself that maybe I do know something worth sharing just to begin with. So that's where I'm at, is these infancy stages of beating imposter syndrome and realizing maybe I do have valuable things to say that other people would care about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people find it really valuable. I certainly do. Tiffany, where can people find you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn. You can find me, Tiffany Murphree. There's not that many of us out there. It's spelled really stupid. So pay attention to how it's spelled.
Murphree, thank you. I think I possibly missaid it at the beginning, Murphy, but no, it's
Murph
Murphree with a free at the
Murphree.
end.
Yes.
Phree. Yeah, that's right. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for being on the show today.
Thank you.